call, press 0. To refuse this call, hang up or press. This call is from a corrections facility and is subject to monitoring, recording, and the location of your phone will be obtained. For more information about our privacy policy, please visit www.connectnetwork.com. After the beep, press 5 to accept this call. This call is from a corrections facility and is subject to monitoring, recording, and the location of your phone will be obtained. Stay on the line to accept this call. Thank you for using GTL.
I don't consent to recording of this call.
Hi. Hi, Mike. How are you tonight?
Pardon me?
How are you doing?
I'm here. I was advised yesterday that I'm classified as, what do they call it? Special something or other.
You're special, all right.
One of the guards told me when I walked in the door, they looked at the screen and it had across the front of it special something. I had to write it down, but basically, he says, you're not going anywhere from this unit. They've got you flagged.
So what does that mean? You can't go to the law library, or you can't go to mess hall, or what?
I can't get moved to another unit. They've got other units that are, like this is the nut house. This is where they put all the mental cases and people coming off of drugs.
Oh, my.
And in the, what they call the God Pod, which is a religious unit, you at least got visitors coming in 2 or 3 times a week with some normal communication lines. And anyway, people that are trying to focus on things other than drugs. And, you know. But,
you can't go to the God Pod?
No.
Oh, brother.
I did get to go to the library last Friday for a couple hours, but I got some of my legal material, but not all of it, just a small amount.
Are you keeping an eye on the Dimaya case, too?
Which case?
D-I-M-A-Y-A. It's at the Supreme Court level, and they're running out of time to make their decision on it, and Gorsuch is the decider, I think.
I don't know anything about it. What's it about?
Okay, well, it's a very important case for many of our political prisoners that have been in jail for decades, and it's about violence and vagueness in violence where there's no victim.
Okay, so they're arguing that they should not be incarcerated as cruel and unusual punishment, or that the crime is void for vagueness because there's no victim.
Yeah.
Or they're going after it from a common law standpoint, claiming you got to have a victim.
I think they are, and if it goes their way, they should be able to walk with time served.
Is that everybody or just that one group?
I don't know. There's about at least 5 different cases that we advocate for that are very anxious to hear the decision. And they've been waiting for months and months and months.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's all about money, and they don't get in a hurry. I know that Rudy had told me that Mel had a case called Rod Class, and I did get a section of that. Basically, he was charged with unlawful possession of a weapon, same charge as me, and he argued that it wasn't a weapon at all because it's a rifle and it doesn't fit the definition of a weapon. And the lower court agreed with him. The U.S. Attorney appeal went all the way to the Supreme Court, and he won. So the Supreme Court has ruled that effectively a rifle is not a weapon by definition. So
good.
I was trying to get the pleadings that he filed so I could attack it from the same standpoint. If I can't get him to recognize my immunity as the ambassador of the Chilcotin Nation, then I attack it from the standpoint that it's not classified as a weapon.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
You know, the charge of unlawful possession of a firearm, you have to look at what is the definition of a firearm.
Mm-hmm.
It's very specific, and it's all about pistols and stuff, and so
check out Dimaya.
Well, if I can get Rod Class's filings, but I'm trying to get Mr. True to contact Mel, and I guess he's got a lot going on right now.
Mm.
But
Okay, well,
I try to call her, and I can't get through to her for some reason. I've got 3 different numbers that Mr. True's given me, and of course the original one I got from Rudy, which I was able to call her, but I guess they just got them blocked because she doesn't respond. And he said she told him that she sees where it looks like I've tried to call, but it never rings. And
do you have Coralink's email?
No.
Oh, she has Coralink's.
Thank you for using GTL.
Oh, poor Mike.
For just a minute, I've been moved to Omaha.
An inmate at the Douglas County Jail. To accept this call, press 0. To refuse this call, hang up or press 1. This call is from a corrections facility and is subject to monitoring, recording, and the location of your phone will be obtained. For more information about our privacy policy, please visit www.connectnetwork.com. After the beep, press 5 to accept this call. This call is from a corrections facility and is subject to monitoring, recording, and the location of your phone will be obtained. Stay on the line to accept this call. Thank you for using GTL.
I don't consent to recording my call. All right, sorry about that. I didn't realize I didn't have but a dollar or something on there. Friday night, Art Bell died.
I know.
Radio. Okay, I didn't know if y'all heard. Yeah, has it been on the news at all, or?
I've seen it on Facebook.
I don't know what kind of health he was in. I wasn't sure how long he had been off of coast to coast, but they said he was 72 and that there was an autopsy being done.
Really?
Yeah. It seems though this past year or so, this past 2 years, there's been more radio talk show hosts either railroaded into prison or die mysteriously.
Yeah.
That I see it for, the likelihood that the more people that they can eliminate from providing a platform or discussing this issue. And today on Glenn Beck's repeat, they were talking about up in, I think it was Michigan, some guys went and got some asphalt and started patching holes in the street. And the city was raising hell, and the city attorney said, well, it's not really our street, so we can't claim that we're the only ones that can maintain it. But effectively, the government doesn't want anybody doing anything that the government does. It's kind of like a racket, and where the court doesn't want anybody representing themselves, because then that takes away from their brethren, the London Lawyers Guild, the Bar Association. It's no different than in New York, where if you want to change a light bulb, you got to have a union electrician change a light bulb.
Yeah. Do you remember Lou Epton?
Who?
L-O-U, Lou Epton, E-P-T-O-N.
No.
He was a really old guy a long time ago. I think he died within the last 15 years. And he had a guest on his show. He was a very popular radio broadcaster. And he had another guy on his show called Dave Hinkson. Do you know the name Dave Hinkson?
Uh-huh.
Well, he had a really popular radio show too, and he would talk with Bill Cooper and Art Bell, and he's a political prisoner now in jail for 15 years. He's been in there on conspiracy to kidnap and murder judges, and he got like 40 years or 35 years or something stupid.
That's insane.
Yep. And he's a super genius like you, and he invented a Galt motor for free energy, and he also invented like nano-sized copper water Oz. He had a very successful multi-million-dollar business called Water Oz, and he's been rotting away in jail too. They had him in ADX Supermax. And I think it was 2 years before his trial, and he was convicted. The only witness to this supposed conspiracy was a Purple Heart thief. Stolen Valor thief.
A what?
A Stolen Valor Purple Heart thief.
A Stolen Valor Purple Heart case?
Thief. He stole a Purple Heart, and he claimed it's been proven that he never served in the war, and he wore a Purple Heart on the witness stand and lied and said David Hinkson solicited him for murder.
Who was the witness?
His name was, give me a minute and I'll remember his name in a second, but he is...
But basically you're saying the witness lied.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
Yeah, here's the thing. These prosecutors can get anybody to take the stand and lie, and these juries they're all rigged.
Yep.
It's not that they're necessarily stupid. It's that they're rigged.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get 12 people to agree on anything.
Mm-hmm.
And when they say they got 25 people in there, you ask 12 people how to bake a cake, you're gonna get 12 different recipes.
Right.
All right. And the definition of probable cause or reasonable doubt means if you got anything at all that doesn't sound legitimate, that's reasonable doubt. And all you got to do is articulate that, well, number one, I'm not subject to the jurisdiction. This is a corporation posing as government, and anybody with a brain cell in their head would be able to say that would void the charge altogether. And has the government demonstrated how they've got jurisdiction, and have they proven that they're not a corporation? We're sitting here looking at a DUNS number proving they're a corporation. The answer being no means maybe they've proved their case. If they were honest, but they're not. They get 50 people that are there to convict you. Yep. They get 50 people that are government employees or family member, or people that are looking at themselves or their family getting sent to prison if they don't convict you, and they will convict you. They're all on the take. It's a rigged game.
There's a new TV show on called Bull, B-U-L-L. It's based on the real attorney that got Oprah Winfrey off on her case, and it's about how he manipulates jury selection and manipulates juries, and it's a scientific process now where they go into all the potential jurors' social media, and it's a big business.
Okay, well, I don't know anything about Oprah Winfrey getting off. Was she being prosecuted or sued?
Yeah, that was years and years ago, and it was over her comments on the beef industry.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Phil,
okay.
I think Dr. Phil helped her, and there was this other guy who studies juries.
Right.
Yeah.
The biggest problem that people have that are celebrities is that the person suing will try to say, well, she thinks she's better than you. And it's broken up into an opinion about someone else's opinion that nobody knows what her opinion is, obviously, but they're going to claim that she thinks X.
Yeah.
And basically that she thinks she's better than you.
Yeah.
And because these people can't relate to running a business,
right,
they're not going to get people that run small businesses, because anybody, even if you don't have a dime, if you ran a small business, you know how hard it is to do what she's done.
Yeah, I understand.
And people that run small businesses respect other people that are successful simply because they had to take the risk and invest in things that other people hadn't done, and they just figured out how to do it and were successful.
Yep, I understand. We also read this week that prosecutors have no responsibility to disclose exculpatory evidence of innocence.
Yep.
Even if it sends an innocent man to the electric chair, no charges can be brought against them, and they're immune until Judgment Day.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I don't buy that. That's unconstitutional, and it's totally immoral.
I agree.
And yeah.
But I'd like to see a case, if anybody's listening, I'd like to see a case where a prosecutor is charged for doing that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Where are all the cases where not only prosecutors are brought up on malicious prosecution, but also judges that are sued for official oppression, for denying people, they're not telling you the form of court. I've asked multiple times, they will not tell you the form of court. They're operating an administrative tribunal, a mercantile court, admiralty court. They're not operating a constitutional court, and they're not going to tell you.
Nope.
Because if they operated a constitutional court, number one, Congress doesn't have the power to regulate commerce between anybody but foreign nations and the states. They don't have the power to regulate commerce between the people or Native Americans. Well, guess what? They're charging me with interference of interstate commerce, to wit, possession of a firearm. The Congress has been given no power to regulate that. I would be one of we the people and or a Native American government official from another nation. And I'm not engaging in any commerce whatsoever with anybody.
I don't know. I understand. I don't know all this legalese, but I can tell you that word commerce comes up over and over and over in a lot of cases.
Because the Second Amendment, right to bear arms shall not be infringed, is hardcore, everything. They claim they come after you for possession via the Commerce Clause because you're interfering with commerce. But people don't read that entire document where the Congress has only got the authority, the power to regulate commerce between the states, two states regulating between themselves, between foreign nations and the states, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the power to regulate commerce between the people. So if two people, this is what they call the gun show loophole. Well, it's not a gun show loophole. Two people can trade or sell or barter a weapon between themselves, and there's no registry required. Because that's commerce between the people.
Yep.
Native American nations can engage in commerce between themselves without any interference from Congress. Congress has no power to regulate commerce between Native American nations or between other nations. So let's say if France and Germany want to have some type of trade, the United States has no power to regulate that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm listening, talking about interference with other sovereign nations. I'm looking at the fact that all I hear from this diatribe coming out of Washington is that, well, it's all about the fact that we've had people make statements that are verified. We've verified their statements, but there's no verified evidence that Assad did anything. But we've got a verified statement.
What's the Purple Heart Valley going
on? The international agency that went in there to inspect to see if there was actual chemical weapons and the source of it, take samples to try to identify where it's from, they kind of bombed this place all to smithereens before they got there.
Right.
A little premature, maybe to cover up something.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on there. I remember the Purple Heart thief. His name is Joe Schwisher. And I think he was charged for fraud in taking Veteran Affairs medical services. I also read this other article in Investors.com. It says U.S. has 3.5 million more registered voters than live adults.
Well, certainly.
Oh, boy.
Look, go to my website, MikeParsons.org, and read on there where I sent a press release out thanking the Election Commission for taking the list of deceased citizens and comparing it to the list of registered voters and purging those people that were registered to vote that were dead. And then Channel 5 in Memphis announced how Tipton County purged 300 some odd dead voters that were still voting. And Shelby County did the same thing. They purged over 3,000, including Rufus Thomas, who had been dead for over 5 years. and he was still voting in 2006. How can that be?
You
They call it
can't.
proxy voting, where somebody assumes his identity, goes and votes in his place.
Right.
That's how these people that run these funeral homes were able to keep getting elected over and over and over. They were stealing people's identity.
Wow.
It's not that hard.
It's terrible.
And, yeah, and the elections are rigged. The entire system is rigged. And everybody needs to realize
You have 1 minute remaining.
there's going to come a time where you're going to do something that's
You have 60 seconds remaining.
otherwise God-given right to do that, which is normal, and they're going to say, you can't do that. You got to hire somebody to do that. You can't change your oil. You got to pay somebody to do that. You can't grow that crop. You got to pay somebody. Everything's going to be controlled if you don't stand up and take back your rights. They're converting all of your rights to privileges, and they're taking us out one by one. So it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
My wife's done nothing to no one, and she's sitting in a prison. She's lost her job, and she's got 5 years in a friggin' federal prison because she was extorted into saying that she was guilty to something she wasn't guilty. Otherwise, she was going to be put in jail, which they couldn't have done legally, but they probably would have done it, and they knew that she was not going to let her animals die. And then her attorney refused to let her withdraw her plea. It's a rigged
Ridiculous.
game.
Yeah, maybe DeMaio will affect her case too.
Thank you for using GTL.